What if I told you that Australia, a nation notorious for ranking among the most expensive places on Earth to live, where rental markets in Sydney and Melbourne routinely demand between $400 and $600 per week for nothing more than a basic room, also contains 5 locations where arriving with just $10,000 in cash can realistically fund 6 to 12 months of existence? Not through illegal squatting, not by drifting into dangerous vagrancy, but by combining extraordinarily cheap, or even free, accommodation with either radical self-sufficiency or disciplined frugality. It may sound like reckless fantasy, the kind that encourages homelessness or unlawful living. Yet the reality is different. These are genuine places and practical strategies where that modest sum can finance a temporary disappearance from expensive mainstream Australian life. For those needing an escape, a reset, or simply time away from obligations, while remaining safe and within legal boundaries, there is a crucial distinction between voluntarily choosing simplicity and being forced into destitution. Number 5. Coober PDE, underground dugout living in an opal town. In the remote outback of South Australia, roughly 840 kilometers north of Adelaide, lies Coober PDE, a town where nearly half the population lives underground. Dugouts carved into hillsides shield residents from brutal surface temperatures that regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius. This unusual settlement presents the first viable $10,000 disappearance option. Cheap underground rentals, the possibility of small-scale opal fossicking, profound geographic isolation, and a culture that respects privacy and eccentricity combine to create an environment where 12 months of basic living can be sustained on limited funds. Accommodation is the key advantage. Basic dugout rentals range from $50 to $100 per week. Rock-hewn rooms with electricity and sometimes water, offering shelter from extreme heat but little else. That translates to just $200 to $400 per month, a fraction of conventional Australian housing costs. Even more remarkably, simple dugouts can sometimes be purchased outright for $5,000 to $15,000. Someone arriving with $10,000 could, in theory, buy a $5,000 dugout and reserve the remaining $5,000 for living expenses, approximately $400 per month for a year. Alternatively, renting at $100 weekly leaves about $7,000, enough for roughly 44 weeks at $150 per week to cover food, fuel, and minimal entertainment. Opal mining adds a unique dimension. In legally accessible abandoned claims, fossickers search for stones overlooked by commercial miners, small, damaged, or difficult pieces worth $20 to $200. It is not reliable income, but occasional finds can stretch a tight budget and fill long days with purpose. Food costs are higher due to remoteness. Supplies are trucked from Adelaide, but disciplined shopping at the local IGA and cooking simple staples like rice, pasta, and canned goods can keep monthly expenses to $200 to $300. Water is costly because scarcity makes it precious, though artesian-bore water may be available cheaply for non-drinking use. The climate is unforgiving, making underground living a necessity rather than a novelty. Dugouts remain a steady 22 to 24 degrees Celsius year-round, without heating or cooling expenses. Isolation is profound. Coober PDE is hours from anywhere, making casual visits from a former life nearly impossible. An 8-hour drive across empty country discourages unexpected reunions. Selective phone contact with family can continue, while other relationships naturally dissolve. With a disciplined $100 weekly budget, $60 for food, $20 for fuel, $10 for phone credit, and $10 discretionary, one can secure a year of peace, free from employment pressure and constant social obligations. Number 4. Cape York Peninsula, tropical bush camping isolation. Far north in Queensland, the remote Cape York Peninsula offers another path. Here, relatively permissive long-term bush camping practices in isolated areas, combined with minimal enforcement, allow for semi-permanent camps on public land or through informal arrangements with traditional owners. By investing in an older four-wheel drive, perhaps a 1980s or 90s Toyota Land Cruiser or Nissan Patrol costing $3,000 to $6,000, and spending $1,000 to $2,000 on quality camping gear, a person could eliminate rent entirely and live outdoors year-round. Location selection is crucial. Respectful relationships with traditional owners, minimal environmental impact, and low visibility are essential. Fishing becomes a primary protein source. Barramundi, queenfish, and mangrove jack are plentiful, supplemented by foraging and monthly supply trips to remote communities such as Weipa, Cohen, or Bamaga. Food costs can remain around $200 to $300 per month. The dry season, May to October, offers warm days and cool nights ideal for camping, while the wet season, November to April, brings torrential rain, flooding, humidity, and cyclones. During those months, waterproof shelter, elevated campsites, and psychological resilience are indispensable. Mold, dampness, and prolonged isolation test even committed adventurers. With $5,000 for a vehicle and $1,500 for equipment, approximately $3,500 remains, around $300 per month or $75 weekly, for food, fuel, maintenance, and minimal discretionary spending. The lifestyle demands mechanical competence, fishing skills, and mental toughness. But once established, weeks may pass without seeing another person. With no fixed address and limited mobile coverage, previous obligations cannot follow. Number 3. Tasmania's Southwest Wilderness. Extended hiking disappearance. In Tasmania, the vast Southwest National Park offers perhaps the most extreme wilderness option. Spanning over 1 million hectares of World Heritage terrain, it allows determined hikers to vanish for weeks or months. While Parks and Wildlife imposes permits and trip duration limits, enforcement in such a vast region is limited. Extended wilderness travel, though ethically and legally complex, does occur. This path requires serious preparation. High-quality alpine gear, tent capable of withstanding snow and extreme wind, sub-zero sleeping bag, 70, 80L pack, waterproof clothing, boots, water filtration, GPS or satellite messenger, first aid supplies, costs $3,000 to $5,000. Equipment failure here can be fatal. Food planning is equally complex. Carrying months of supplies is impractical, so hikers may establish resupply caches in waterproof containers hidden near track junctions. Fishing for trout in remote lakes supplements rations. Some acknowledge illegal hunting of wallaby or possum in survival situations, though this carries legal consequences. Established routes such as the Port Davey Track, South Coast Track, and Western Arthur Range provide occasional huts and rare encounters with other hikers. Venturing beyond them brings absolute isolation. Rain can fall any day. Snow is possible even in summer. Wind can halt movement entirely. Extended exposure demands both physical fitness and psychological resilience. With $4,000 in gear and $1,000 for permits and transport, the remaining $5,000 could theoretically fund a year spent largely in wilderness, where daily costs beyond food are minimal. But this option suits only experienced bushwalkers, not romantics unprepared for hardship. Number 2. Nullarbor Plain Roadhouse. Working exchange in the middle of nowhere. Stretching between South Australia and Western Australia, the vast Nullarbor Plain offers a different strategy: long-term working exchanges at remote roadhouses. These isolated outposts, sometimes 100 to 200 kilometers from the nearest habitation, provide accommodation and meals in exchange for labor. Roles include fuel attendant, kitchen hand, cleaner, or maintenance worker. Housing is basic, demountables, or converted shipping containers, but utilities are included. Meals are hearty, if uninspired. Managers often seek 6 to 12-month commitments. Some offer nominal wages of $100 to $200 per week, adding $1,200 to $1,600 over 6 months. The work is repetitive and isolating. Permanent staff usually number 5 to 10, creating intense small group dynamics where conflicts magnify. Passing travelers provide brief interaction before vanishing into endless highway. Mobile reception is minimal. Wi-Fi may exist, but is limited. Your address becomes the roadhouse itself. Financially, the arrangement preserves your $10,000 almost untouched, building security while covering essentials. Psychologically, it demands tolerance for monotony and isolation. For some, the simplicity heals burnout. For others, it exacerbates anxiety or depression. Arranging such work involves directly contacting roadhouses and demonstrating reliability, as managers are wary of short-term backpackers who quit when isolation loses its novelty. Number 1. Remote Central Australian Aboriginal outstations, cultural integration, and absolute isolation. The most complex option involves seeking permission from traditional owners to reside in remote outstations in Central Australia. This path requires humility, genuine skills, mechanical repair, solar maintenance, building work, first aid, or teaching, and a willingness to integrate respectfully into community life. It is not a loophole for exploiting remoteness or evading obligations. Trust must be earned, often through prior volunteering or sanctioned programs. A reliable four-wheel drive costing around $5,000 is essential. Another $1,000 secures basic camping and living equipment, leaving $4,000 for fuel, supplies, maintenance, and emergencies. Living conditions are simple: limited solar power, scarce water, minimal or no internet, extreme heat without air conditioning. Entertainment comes from community interaction and the landscape itself. Cultural adaptation is profound. Protocols around sacred sites, kinship systems, gender roles, and collective decision-making replace mainstream individualism. Remote outstations may lie 2 to 4 hours from the nearest town. Medical evacuation is required for serious issues. Supplies demand monthly planning. Contact from a previous life becomes logistically difficult, often fading naturally. For some, the experience reshapes understanding of time, success, and community. For others, the hardship proves overwhelming. The $10,000 serves as security, ensuring departure remains possible if the arrangement no longer benefits both parties. In the end, these 5 paths demonstrate that even in a country as expensive as Australia, geographic and lifestyle alternatives exist. Through cheap underground housing, tropical bush camping, wilderness immersion, roadhouse working exchanges, or remote community integration, 6 to 12 months of disappearance can be financed with modest funds. The trade-off is clear: comfort, convenience, and constant connectivity, assumptions many Australians treat as necessities, must be relinquished. But they are choices, not survival requirements. And for those prepared to accept genuine hardship and adapt to radically different circumstances, escape from expensive mainstream life is not fantasy. It is possible.